Imagine a world where Adolf Hitler, the infamous dictator behind some of the worst atrocities in history, chose a different path. What if he had never stepped into politics? What if, instead of leading a nation into war, he had followed his early dream of becoming an artist? A simple change like this could have completely altered the course of history. Born in 1889, Hitler's early years were filled with dreams of becoming a famous artist. His life was filled with art, and it was clear from a young age that painting was his passion. He loved sketching the buildings and streets of his hometown, but as he grew older, he dreamed of studying at a prestigious art academy. This dream, however, was crushed when he was rejected, not once, but twice, by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Now, imagine a world where Hitler was accepted into that art academy. Instead of a life full of political ambition, military strategy, and violence, what if he had spent his days surrounded by paintbrushes, canvases, and ideas of beauty? His artistic journey could have been vastly different. What if, instead of rising to power as a politician, Hitler's paintings became the talk of Europe? Maybe he would have displayed his works in famous galleries, debated by critics, and praised by art lovers. Picture a world where his name was not known for causing fear, but for creating striking pieces of art. Could Hitler have become a celebrated artist, perhaps even admired for his unique vision? Hitler's artistic style, though, was often described as rigid and structured. His paintings weren't free-flowing or wild. They were precise, orderly, and focused on detail. His subjects were mostly buildings and landscapes, never filled with the human emotion that many other artists of the time were known for. But what if this very precision, this obsession with control and perfection, became his signature style in the art world? What if, instead of his works being rejected as dull and lifeless, they were viewed as something unique? Something that stood apart from the chaos of the modern world? It's possible that his attention to detail could have made him famous, perhaps even influential. People could have appreciated his work as a symbol of order in an increasingly chaotic world. He could have made a name for himself as an artist with a very specific, almost obsessive focus on perfection. But let's stop and think about this for a moment. Would he have stayed just an artist? Hitler wasn't someone who would settle for just being good at something. He always wanted to be the best, the most powerful. If he had succeeded as an artist, would that be enough? Or would his desire for control eventually creep into his art? What if, over time, Hitler tried to manipulate the world of art the same way he manipulated politics later on? Picture this. Instead of conquering countries, Hitler could have tried to conquer the art world. Maybe he would have used his art as a tool to spread his own ideas of order, purity, and nationalism. His art could have turned into propaganda, just as his speeches became. He could have created a movement centered around his vision of what was beautiful, what was acceptable art, and pushed that vision onto the world. In this reality, it's easy to imagine Hitler using his fame to spread his ideas, not through politics or violence, but through his paintings. Instead of trying to control countries, he could have tried to control culture, pushing his views of perfect beauty and art onto society. The world could have seen a new type of dictatorship, not one based on military power, but one based on the influence of art. But then again, what if the world simply didn't accept him? What if his style, his obsession with order, turned people off? His paintings were often too cold, too calculated. They lacked the warmth and emotion that many people craved in their art. Could he have been rejected as an artist, just as he was rejected by the Academy of Fine Arts? Perhaps his works would have been dismissed as stiff, unoriginal, or lacking in soul. And if that had happened, would his desire to control the world have shifted back to politics? Could his failure in the art world have turned him toward the dark path of dictatorship? There's also the question of how Hitler's artistic career would have played out over time. Would he have eventually grown disillusioned with art and moved into politics? Or would his obsession with perfection have driven him to the point where his art became more controlling than creative? There's a possibility that his need for perfection would have stifled his creativity, leading to his downfall in the art world, just as it led to his tragic rise in politics. In the end, what if Hitler had truly become an artist? Would the world have remembered him differently? Could he have created a legacy that was about creativity and culture rather than hate and destruction? Maybe in this alternate reality, he would have been known for his paintings, paintings that inspired millions rather than the speeches and ideologies that caused millions of deaths. It's strange to think about how a different decision, a different outcome, could have shaped a person's life and, by extension, the world. What if one man's dream had been realized and he had found success not as a tyrant, but as an artist? In the end, we'll never know, but it's fascinating to imagine. The world could have seen a very different side to Hitler. Instead of a legacy of violence and war, he might have been remembered as a symbol of creative genius, admired for his dedication to his craft. His obsession with perfection could have led him to create groundbreaking works of art that would have stood the test of time. He could have become a legend in the art world, with a following of people who appreciated his attention to detail and his unique approach to the world. However, even in this alternate reality, there's still the question of his character. Would his ego have allowed him to remain humble as an artist? Could he have avoided the need to dominate the art world, the same way he sought to dominate the political world? It's possible that his obsession with perfection could have led him to overshadow other artists, just as his drive for power led him to overshadow countless lives in the political world. In the end, we can only imagine. Perhaps in this alternate timeline, Hitler would have created a world filled with beauty instead of devastation. But what we know for sure is that a small change in his life could have created an entirely different legacy, one that would have shaped the world in a much more peaceful way.